school here?
Yes.
You graduated
2014.
14.
Yeah.
So it's been a while now.
Yeah. 5-6 years almost.
And you started coming here while you were still in high school.
Yeah.
Wow.
So when I was like 14, I kind of knew what I wanted to do, or at least work in music. I liked recording already. I was doing stuff at home all the time, working on Logic and Rocket and stuff and other programs. And anyway, and I had some friends who were going to school here or had gone to school here, so I already knew about it. And my senior year, I had 3 credit hours I had to get to finish high school. And so I talked to my high school and I was like, hey, I want to go do this program my senior year. This makes sense for me for my career. There's nothing for me to do in high school that would help me for this specifically, other than graduating. And they're like, yeah, and they were totally receptive, and they gave me 2 credit hours to do that, to come here to do school, and then I had to finish English at high school. So I went to high school for 55 minutes a day, and then I came here for the rest of the day. So yeah, so then I graduated in 2014. I was like 19 years old or something. I now do composition and audio post-production for Garmin, which is basically they make all their own ads and any sort of media, and I do all the music and sound for it. So I'm going to show you some examples of that, and then another project I'm working on. So that was a 30-second ad that would be on TV or YouTube or any sort of anything, 30 seconds. This next one this was played in movie theaters. So this was an ad for a watch we were doing and also promoting the Spider-Man movie that was coming out that Garmin did with Disney. So this was played in movie theaters in North America, in Europe and Australia and some other places. So you go see a movie and there's an ad beforehand.
With the Spider-Man VivoFit Junior 2, real-world activity unlocks exclusive Spider-Man app adventures, all while being packed with features parents love. Be the hero. Get your kids the Spider-Man VivoFit Junior 2 from Garmin.
For both of those were completely original compositions, 100%, all the sound, any sound effects, which those were pretty light sound effects, but so literally 100% original music. They ask for a vibe or a style of music or actual reference, like, hey, make something like this. And then I go and I make several options or dive into one and present that, and they either like it or they don't. And so the Spider-Man one was make something that's kind of hip-hop or focused, but kind of heroic, superhero feeling, which is not something that exists. You can't, because I at my work we have stock music libraries because we do so much that I can't make music for every single project. So we have a library that we can pull from. But for that, there really wasn't anything. So the solution was to make something. And obviously there's string patches and electronic music elements, and in the full version there's a guitar riff in there and stuff. And all of those elements came together. Some of them played live, some of them programmed, some of them, MIDI, some are electronic, drum machines. There's all kinds of stuff involved, and then sound effects. So I'll say this: everything you're gonna hear is 100% original, composed, recorded, programmed by me.
So when you got to Garmin, were you doing this from the start? This is what you were, you went there to do?
Yes, yeah.
Cool.
So they have their own in-house production team, and I'll kind of talk about that as I talk about my whole thing. So this is a 15-second spot that would be played on YouTube pre-roll or something.
Break the norm and wear the ruggedly bold GPS smartwatch that does too. Instinct from Garmin.
So obviously super short, sweet, to the point. You have to figure out how to make musical compositions in 15 seconds make sense. And I'll play a little bit of this last one. So this is more of a video that would just kind of show some of the features of a product on like our website. You'd go to a Garmin website, oh, I want to look at this product. This video would be there to kind of overview all of those things. So this is another thing I do a lot at Garmin.
We were not meant for dividers and boundaries. We were meant to explore. We are driven to roam the unknown.
So when I was here, I was doing, I'd always been recording at home, recording my friends' bands and stuff, and I was doing it all the time. Was super into recording. I like wanted to record bands and music. I loved rock music and all that stuff. And then through going here, like got exposed to folk music and blues and classical music and jazz, and like really opened up my world to all that kind of stuff, and like synthesis and learning music theory. So all these things. I'm like a rock guitar player dude. That is like my thing 100%. But this totally opened up my world to every other style. And in all kinds of different careers. So that's what I want to focus on is I wanted to be a recording engineer at a studio. That was like all I cared about, all I thought about. And so I'm going through the program, everything's great. We do the audio for video project, and we do a couple radio ads, which I'm guessing you guys have done already. So all that stuff, like I did it, learned a lot, cool. I didn't expect to have to use it much after this. I was also 19 and didn't know everything. And so there was a company called Liquid 9 that was and still is a post-production audio company, which Cash works for now. So you guys are probably familiar with that. They were looking for an audio engineer. They had the same guy for like a decade working there, and he quit and is doing something else. I went and interviewed, and Thai and all that stuff, and I went to this facility that they have, and they're a production company, so they have directors and video shooters and photographer, graphic design people, motion graphics people, and copywriters. So then I go and interview, and I had never really done that kind of stuff except for here. I was like, well, I write a lot of music, I record a lot of music, I have done some audio for video stuff through school, and I had my video project to show them, and they're like, that's great, cool, we want you to come like work on a project and just try you out. I was like, okay, cool. So I was gonna do a voiceover recording, which you guys aren't sure what that is. I hope that you know at least, is when somebody comes in and records a voice for like an ad or something. It's a script, whatever. Mm-hmm. Which I've done hundreds of those at this point. That's like a lot of what I do, and it's a huge part of it. Like, the way you listen to an instrument, you listen to voices the same way. People's inflections affect you a certain way, and that is huge. And you can go on and on and on. If you don't know what to listen for, you can be totally lost. So anyway, I hadn't done a lot of it, but we had done some ADR stuff here and some VO work, which was great and totally helpful. And so I came in, I was just going to do like a fake session, basically. Like, actually, we want you to work on this project instead. It's an actual project. It was a commercial for Sporting KC. I was like, okay, all right, let's see how this goes. So I stayed there and had to compose a song in their studio with their equipment I had never been at before. Like, all right, just work on it and we'll come check on you in like 3 or 4 hours. I was like, all right then. Okay, so I went to the studio I had never been to, but they had all the equipment and they had a bunch of instruments and they had everything I needed. And so I went for it, went there, composed a song, they gave me a reference, made something, presented to it that day. They're like, this is great, can you come back in tomorrow? I wasn't getting paid. And I was like, sure, absolutely. And so I leave and I come back the next day, and keep working on it. And I add some other stuff. I actually took the project home to my apartment and had my friends do like some gang vocals on it, some like haze and stuff. And then I brought it back, and and that was a note to them from them. They're like, hey, add this in there. And I was like, how am I supposed to find like a bunch of dudes to yell for me? Like, you know, but you figure it out. And so I did. And that was my first project. And then I kind of just kept working there. And then after a few days, I was like, you guys gonna actually hire me, or am I just gonna keep doing this? Like, oh yeah, we'll pay you. Don't worry about it. And so then I got hired there, and I had never done a composition job professionally before. I'd only done stuff here. So point is, you know, I wasn't expecting that to happen, and you kind of have to be ready to take it on whenever it comes up. And I was doing live sound this whole time after graduating. So I was doing live sound with a wedding band company. You guys met Catch, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he works for the company I used to work for, doing wedding band live sound stuff. Which again, live sound was not the thing I thought I was going to go do, but I made money doing it, and I was doing it all the time. You know, several gigs a weekend, and paying my bills doing that. And so I ended up stopping doing that because I moved to Virginia. And so I moved to Virginia, and I got a job there as an audiovisual technician, which I don't know if you guys know anything about AV. Do you guys know the company PSAV? Okay, so there's a couple companies, PSAV, and then another one called Encore, which is the one that I worked for. And they are, actually I think they just absorbed them, so another one company. So anyway, audiovisual technician. So that is the person that sets up like projectors and podium microphones and speakers for like events at spaces. So I worked at a hotel in Richmond, Virginia, setting up conferences and any sort of event that would happen there. So a company would come in and like have a 3-day event where people would speak and talk. I'd set up the projectors, speakers, microphones, all that stuff. And so totally different ballgame. Again, something I'd never done. It's not even necessarily like live sound. You know, it's like a totally different thing, messing with projectors and TV screens and computers and all kinds of other stuff. It's a whole different ballgame. And you can get really far and deep into that stuff too and make good money and have a great career and security and all that stuff. So I was working there, I was just doing that, trying to get back into recording stuff or doing whatever, making music. And then I heard about this job at Garmin, and again, I was like, there's no way they're gonna hire me. There's no way. Like I just applied on a whim. I was like, whatever, we'll see what happens. But I had somebody vouching for me there. So waited like 3 months, not expecting anything. I was just doing my thing, and then I get a call from them and an email, and they're like, hey, can we interview you on the phone or something? I was like, sure, okay, cool. And I was still not expecting anything. I was like, there's no way they're gonna hire me. Like I don't have a ton of experience in that field. It was commercial audio stuff. It was what I was doing at Liquid 9. And sure enough, they called me like, hey, we want to bring you out for an in-person interview. So anyway, ended up getting the job at Garmin. They through connections and what my work and whatever. Even though I'd only worked at that other place for 7 months, my portfolio and showing up and being from Kansas City, it was all things I had going for me. And I had somebody vouching for me a little bit. That kind of put my name at the top of the list. And I found out later there was like 100 people that applied for that job, which is like nuts. You know, like 100 audio engineers applying for the same job, like that. I mean, not trying to toot my own horn, but like that's crazy. But it's just super competitive, super competitive. And I got super lucky. So now I'm at Garmin. I've been there for 2 years, and I'm able to work on other projects. I work 8 to 5 every day. I don't really stay late often, you know. But that was from 5 years of grinding and just like doing, you know, working long hours, working late, working until 3 in the morning all the time, doing lots of recording projects, working on stuff. I mean, seriously, nonstop. Moving, trying to get a job in a state I've never been to, and then trying to keep my career going still. You know, I wanted to keep working in audio, whatever that took. I didn't want to work at Home Depot, not that bad. And so, but you know, it took me until working at Garmin to kind of feel like, okay, everything I was doing was a stepping stone for this. You know, all the stuff I learned at VRC, all the stuff I learned from Liquid 9, all the stuff that I learned from doing live sound. And I also have done sports TV audio stuff. That's a whole other thing you guys should look into. You can make great money doing that too. I mean, there's so many avenues that aren't just recording. And you can always do that stuff too. You can do all this stuff all the time. if you can have the connections and put yourself out there. You will always find ways to get faster and better.
Mhm.
And I think the best way that I figured out how to get faster and better at any of this stuff is by doing it constantly.
Yeah.
Like, you're never going to get better at editing anything unless you're editing it. You know, you can't tune 2 sets of vocals and expect it to be super fast after that.
Mhm.
Can't edit, be detective, I don't know how far along you guys are, but be detective a drum kit once and be like, oh, I've got this forever. I've got it nailed, and I'm gonna make it easy and perfect every time. Like, you have to do it tons and tons and tons of times. Always do it. And you'll learn new shortcuts, you'll learn new workflows just by doing that.
Yeah.
So as far as getting better, it really is just practice, 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 practice. Same with music theory. I don't know if you guys, which one of you guys know that stuff or not. I came into this program not knowing a lot, but I use it all the time, constantly, when I'm analyzing tracks or I'm writing stuff. I'm not necessarily writing out the music, but, you know, looking at a piano roll and editing MIDI or whatever, or analyzing a chord structure or whatever I'm trying to do. I mean, that stuff is paramount. I couldn't do this job without that.
Okay.
And that's something that I try to work on still, is like, I could compose way faster if I knew more music theory.
Mhm.
If I was a better piano player, I could compose much quicker.
Yeah.
I think as far as time management,
Just practice.
keep doing it, man. Keep doing it all the time. And I think another thing I want to drive the point home is, like, this is just a stepping stone, big time. Like, you have opportunities here to take advantage of this and do it. You may not be amazing now, but in 5 years, if you keep doing it at a pace, you will get better and you will feel that. And maybe it's not perfect at first. I think it took me about 5 years after graduating to kind of settle myself and kind of realize, okay, everything that I did led up to this, and everything I was doing was just in preparation for this. And it'll feel that way in 5 more years, I imagine. I'm only 25, so I don't know.
That's cool though.
I've been super lucky to have what I've had. So, yeah, just take advantage of the opportunities you guys have here. You know, you guys have space, you guys have equipment, you guys have tons of ways to work, hundreds of projects to work on. So that's time management.
Hell yeah.
Just do it all the time. Get better at it. You don't need to be perfect now, but when you start working, you need to make sure that you nail it.
Cool.
So I think that's the name of the game.
Well,
Just
thank you.
don't ever miss a deadline, because it'll screw you. You guys just stick to grinding and asking questions and being really, really, really curious and executing ideas and trying things. Like, if you haven't tried every pair of overheads, I don't know what you're doing. If you don't know what every pair of overheads sounds like, you've done something wrong. Like, you need to figure that out. Just for yourself, like, why don't you know that? You know, have you used anything other than KM84s? Have you used anything other than 4041s? Like, what do ribbon mics sound like? Is that good or bad? Why do people use those? Why does it sound super murky, but when other people use them, they sound super bright? It's because they're using EQ on it. You know, it's like stuff, you have to research this stuff for yourself and execute it and try to figure it out. And for people who are early on in the program, maybe aren't even using Pro Tools yet or whatever, you know, for me, hanging out with the older, farther along people was huge. That was super cool, getting advice from them and learning from them, kind of getting ahead of it a little bit. Like, okay, so they're doing this project, what are they doing? You know, be at as many sessions as you can. And same goes for the portfolio guys. Like, seriously, be at every session if you can. I know work and life gets in the way, but, like, seriously, you have this now. This is your last chance. This is it. Be at as many sessions as you can. Be curious. You know, start with the first thing. You know, like, think about what you want to get out of it. Think of questions you want to ask. If you're curious about anything, I don't think any question is a bad question. You know, and it can lead you somewhere. You know, there's a lot of hokey recording tricks and all kinds of stuff out there, and depending on what you're interested in. And I think trying them out, even if they're stupid, at least tells you why you can validate that feeling. You can be like, yeah, I've done that, and it works for this reason, or it doesn't work for this reason. So I think just kind of starting with a fundamental curiosity, being around it constantly it'll bleed into you. You know, you will be curious, you will ask questions, you will come up with things and conclusions. Like you said, this really well put. Like, you don't know what questions to ask all the time. And I find that when I was in your position, like, I'm asking completely different questions now than I was 5 years ago. Like, what I'm curious about now is so different. You know, and it's kind of funny if I talk to somebody who's 50 or has been recording for 30 years, and I ask them questions, they may respond in a way that doesn't make sense to me because they have been through so much. They are coming at it from a completely different perspective, and I think it's hard, both sides of that, to understand, like, okay, well, where are you guys at? And so I'm sure some of my answers maybe seemed a little bit like, well, I don't fully get what he's talking about still. Or like, that didn't fully answer my question, but it maybe opened up some other stuff. It's tough, but you will get there, and you will get through every piece of this. You will experience. Like I said, it's all stepping stones, and that's something that I've felt immensely in the last couple of years. Is every step of this is just going to lead to the next thing. You know, like obsessing over a certain type of miking technique, obsessing over using all transformer preamps versus all solid state preamps, obsessing over pop music composition, like what makes a perfect pop song. You know, how to condense a story in a song in 60 seconds, you know, all these random things that go on and on. The perfect banjo sound, you know, the godforsaken instrument that you have to try to make sound good. And so, yeah, I mean, I think just try to go down the rabbit hole, you know, anything you want to experiment with or try. Give yourself the opportunity to try, or ask somebody. I mean, I always liked helping people, and people always were willing to help me. I think having a community within school is like huge. You can learn from each other as much as you can learn from the program, I think, if you're willing to put yourself out there. Having an education in this field, like having a 4-year college degree can or cannot help you depending on what you're trying to do. And it's not necessarily. You know, it can help you in a lot of ways, but really, and the reason I bring that up is because your portfolio is what's going to sell you. That is it. They don't care about what you've done on paper. They don't care about what you can say you can do. They just want to see it. You can show them, like I showed you guys, things that I've worked on. And they can decide, okay, well, this is what he can do, then yes, we want him, or no, we don't. So really, that is your key to getting these things. That and your personality, being able to talk to people, or, you know, be knowledgeable enough and have a positive attitude. And just be super hardworking. I mean, just say yes to as much stuff as you can, because you never know when that stuff's going to come up. Like, especially here, when maybe there's things that you're not as interested in. Because for me, I was like, I just cared about microphones and rock music and all this other stuff, but like, music theory, electronics, acoustics, you know, the business side of things, live sound. I mean, all this stuff, the audio for video stuff, I never thought I would professionally add sound effects to anything, and now I do it every single day. And love it. That's the other thing, is like I ended up really falling in love with this career path, not knowing that was going to happen 5 years ago. I had no idea. And so, yeah, but if you have a portfolio, you can at least sell yourself to people who don't know who you are, and be like, oh, okay, so this is what he's capable of. Cool. So seriously, I would just focus on your portfolio. Just make sure it's killer. You get excited when you listen to the tracks. You know, if you don't like listening to it, it's not right. It's not done. It's not ready. Driving home, just working hard all the time. Like, this is not a job you can slack off in. This is not a career that you want to just like do your way through at all. And you want to utilize every opportunity you can get. And especially if you don't know people, because if you're trying to get into like the recording studio business, it's who you know and what you can do. Again, portfolio and who you are. If you can provide those things to somebody, that's how you can sell yourself. Yeah, I mean, all these things, there's so many opportunities out there. Seriously, and they're all really fun and interesting. And kind of the more fringe you get, the more, like, maybe of a chance you have, because everyone's into recording now. Everyone wants to record bands. Everyone wants to do that. And not that you shouldn't do it. And if you really want to do it, go for it. I mean, I still do it. If you're passionate and you care and you put in the time, you'll get somewhere with it. It may not be tomorrow. It may not be a year. Maybe 5 years. Maybe 2 years. Maybe you'll nail something. You never know. But I think, you know, I've seen people go through this and give up. I've seen people go through it and slack. None of them are doing it. You know, they're working different jobs that aren't audio related. Some of them are happy doing it, and some of them realized this wasn't for them, and then other people could have flourished, and they just chose not to. So I think just having a super positive attitude, really taking advantage of what you have, working hard all the time. These are super important. And I think that anybody who just has the drive can make it happen. Anybody can do this if they try, seriously. So really, if you ever feel discouraged or like, God, this isn't working out, this doesn't sound right, or I'm not enjoying this, you know, like push through that resistance. You know, like, oh, if it's something you don't want to do, you feel queasy about, probably means you need to do it. Like, man, I don't want to do this mix. This sounds like garbage. Or I don't want to edit this thing or whatever. And it's like, sit down with it for 2 hours and just knock it out. See what can happen. You know, what progress can you make in that time? Look up different ways to do things. You know, I'm kind of obsessive over this stuff, which worked out for me. But I think that attitude can kind of help you. Like, if you're distracted with other things, you can get really off track and not get the most gain for what you have at your disposal. I want to tell you guys a story about when I first did a VO recording at Liquid 9 with a VO talent. They came in, and it was over the Sporting KC app we were doing. And so, you know, when you guys record music here, you're like, or when you do the ADR for the movie project, you record while the video's going, right? Or while the song is playing, you obviously need to record over said song that you're recording if you're overdubbing or whatever. So I was like, yeah, so we'll play the video and you'll do the VO on top of the video while the music plays. Nope, that is not what you do. That is not how the industry does it. And I made a fool of myself in front of these people trying to record this guy doing a VO over a 30-second ad with music and sound effects. And like, we literally never do that. It's literally not how it's done. I was like, okay, noted. And so I moved over to the other side of the timeline in Pro Tools. We started doing takes and keeping playlists and editing. And I had to edit several versions on the fly in front of them and present them and clear out breaths and do fades and change timing and remember when they say, I like that one, mark it. You know, there's all these little things that you would never know just sitting in your room reading about recording. And so I think that's like a perfect example of a time that like I wasn't prepared for something, but I was able to work through it. And it's not like they fired me, you know. And if you're ever in a studio and you're shadowing somebody or like you're an assistant or something, just shut up and listen. Don't talk. Don't give your suggestion. Even if they're doing something you think is stupid, don't say anything. They're way more experienced than you. They know what they're doing. Even if they don't, that's on them. I made that mistake too at another studio. I was shadowing and like trying to be Mr. Cool Guy and set up a 421 on a bass cab, and I shouldn't have done that. That wasn't my place, and he moved it, and I didn't get to work with him again. And I think as far as time management, you can't screw up when you're a professional.
Yeah.
You just can't. You have to be reliable.
Yeah.
And so if you don't meet a deadline, you're screwed. I have not missed a single deadline in my professional career because I can't. And if I need more time, I ask ahead of time.
Yeah.
If you can't nail it, if you're like, I need more time on this, talk to somebody that can help you. Yeah. So I mean, the more you can do to be on that level, the better off you'll be, and the more confident you'll be, which is a huge thing too. Like, I know I was saying, like, you know, sit down and shut up, but like confidence is also something you have to have too. Because if you are just like, well, you know, people are not gonna feel comfortable. So if something goes wrong, I think is usually when I'm kind of talking about this, like, oh, something's not working. Don't freak out. You don't even have to say anything. You know, if it's a session, I think something that I've seen a lot of young engineers do is not communicate. It's the funniest thing ever, because I remember not doing it either. Like, you have a band in there, and you're in here, and you're like, oh my god, the console, oh my god, the HD, what am I doing? Oh, I've got to set this up. And you are not communicating with the band. The band has no idea what's going on. They are isolated completely. Alcatraz. They are just out there. And so, all you have to do is be like, hey, we're working on something for a second. Hang tight. All you have to do. You just have to say something. So that they can be like, oh, okay, cool, I can chill for a second. I think the same kind of thing goes for any work that you do with clients, is to make sure that you are communicating with them constantly, but not telling them like, oh, my system is crashing. Oh, my Pro Tools thing just died. If something crashed, be like, give me a second, I gotta load up a different thing, hold on. Or just say, well, I gotta load this, or whatever. You can just make it up, it doesn't have to be precise. And so I kind of struggled with like, okay, I wanna be straightforward and honest, but also like, I don't want them to worry, because especially in my industry, these people will take anything you say super seriously. And like, you know, I'll say an example recently was I was with the highest person at my job other than the CEO. Like, he is my boss, super boss person, in charge of my department. And we were doing an ad where there was a bunch of different voices, and they were all recorded on set, and they were filmed in South America. And people had accents, and they were recorded kind of poorly, and the whole thing was like, okay, I've got to noise reduce this and EQ it and all this stuff to make it totally audible so that anybody could understand what they're saying. And I made a very stupid call to be like, well, look, I think, you know, they were hung up on one or two of them, and I was like, look, I think anybody that watches this are going to get at least 90% of them. And maybe they'll miss a couple, but, you know, they'll get the gist. And that, he just went, was like, oh crap, that was the wrong thing to say. You don't want to say that some people won't get it. You know, you want to just be like, either don't say anything because it's your super boss and you just shut up and just let them figure it out and make the decision, or say something completely positive and neutral, and you know, and just let them think like you've got it taken care of. It'll be fine. That's all they want to hear. They want to trust you. They want to trust that you will get it done, get it done right. They don't want to worry about it. If you add stress to them, they are not going to like that. And I think another thing is when you work under somebody, you need to anticipate what they want, and you'll get that whether you're an assistant engineer, whether you are working with a client, whether it's your boss, it doesn't matter. You need to anticipate everything that they're going to want. So like, let's say you're an assistant engineer and the guy that's recording does certain things always, or something goes wrong, like, oh crap, this preamp's out. Be at the patch bay, already ready to replace that patch. You know, if you're like shadowing, don't do that. But if you're an assistant engineer, be ready for that. Always anticipate what they need. You know, if they're going to set up vocal mics, like, hey, we're going to do vocals. Be out there setting up vocal mics already. Or if you're anticipating like, oh, they're finishing up this thing and they're going to do vocals next, just be ready. I think that's huge. Anticipating what people need and just having a positive attitude and not revealing if something's going wrong. I think could be super helpful. As much as I'm pushing like, make it perfect, complete it, blah, 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 85% is 100%. If it means getting the work done and turned in the professional world. Because that extra 15% is for the people in this room. Be like, oh, that sounded sick. Or like, man, that's just a really great mix. You just have to make sure the emotion's there. You know, if the ad people are happy, then you're happy. If the client's happy, you're happy. That's really the name of the game when you start doing it professionally. That said, everything I showed today, I'm like really happy with, and I'm not sitting here like, God, it sucked. Like, because it's complete, and I decided it was complete, and it's been in the world, and it's lived, and I don't go back to those projects and mess with them. The way I organize projects is usually, if I'm composing something, I will do that in a separate session than the final project, because I'm going to have like 20 some odd tracks or 40 or something ridiculous, depending on what style it is. And then condensing that down to a stereo track into the actual video project is way easier and way less intensive if I'm going to add sound effects, VO, and mastering chain, blah, 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 blah. I usually organize by like music, VO, sound effects, master, and I tend to do separate buses for all three of those things because I have to make stems for every single project. So I have to have a music stem, I have to have a sound effects stem, and a VO stem. And what that allows me to do later, which is a big thing about organization, is like I'm gonna have to make cut downs, which is when you take that 60-second project and cut it into 30 seconds, 30 into 15, whatever. If I just have those stems, I can just cut those up and make my cut downs. Super easy. I'm messing with 3 tracks instead of 50 and trying to make sure that nothing slides and all the fades are right and all this other stuff. So, and all my plugins and automation doesn't move. So for the ad stuff, there's that. As far as workflow for like recording a band or something, something I learned here was like, you know, write out all the mics, where they're going to be plugged in, what they're going to be on. That's huge. Just having that mentally prepared beforehand is really nice. You don't have to think about it. You can give it to people that are helping you. Having the session set up for that. Really, I've just come to like certain things always. Like I use the same compressor on every vocal, every VO, always. Because it's just quick. I like how it sounds. I know what I want to do. I just stick with it. I change it sometimes or add other stuff, but like when you're working on projects, you're not like screwing around that much. You're like, I know this works. I'm gonna do this way. That's why everyone uses an SM57 on a guitar amp and on a snare drum, because it sounds like the thing. It's like that's what you're expecting it to sound like. You don't want to question that. But of course, use other stuff and figure out why. Why do people use those? Why is that the standard? Yeah.
Did you use like drum triggers or anything on that track to help bring things out?
Good question. I was hoping somebody would ask. So, and I could go on all day about this, so I'm going to try to keep it somewhat brief. So with that song, there is a subtle snare sample, but honestly, you're hearing mostly the real kit. Same with the kick and the tom, so everything was real in that, and those are all real amps, except the bass has like a bass amp simulator plug-in on it. So with that thing, like with metal drums or really processed drums, try your hardest to get the sound at the get-go, and that is something that you will not get at first. You will not get it, and that's okay. You will figure out the type of drum heads, the type of tuning, the size of drums, the drum heads, how to hit the drums, how to mic them. All those things matter paramountly for that type of sound, every type of sound. And learning, that's something else I would suggest you guys do. Like, if you care about that kind of thing, any kind of instrumentation, figure out what the instrument needs to sound like to get the right sound. Because it's not just about the mic pre, it's not just about the EQ, it's not just about the mic, it's not just about how you place it, it's the instrument, it's the source. The source is gonna get you 85% of the way there. Everything you do after that is just making it better and making it the best version of itself. So as far as making like a really punchy process thing, if you recorded something and you can't re-record it, which is most of how the sessions are here, and I don't know if you did do a click, whatever, just my personal opinion, do whatever it takes to get the sound right. If that means replacing all of the drums, and there's ways to do that, you don't need to trigger them while you record, you can trigger them after, there's a million ways to do that. Replace those drums, man. It's a metal mix. You know, if it's a like a Jack White style rock mix, that's not gonna sound right probably. You know, where it's supposed to sound kind of natural, or like a jazz mix. Like, but still, like if a jazz drummer's hitting and he messes up a snare hit, grab another snare hit and drop it in its place, man. Like, make it work. That's my opinion. So as far as how to actually get a sound like that, most of that stuff's replaced. When they get really, really, really good, like really high-level bands, really high-level engineers, they're recording 85% of the way there and supplementing either with samples they made or samples that they already have.
Cool.
And that's just the truth. And if somebody tells you otherwise, they've never worked on a production like that, honestly. So they've been doing that since the 80s at least. So if that's something you want to use with your portfolio, and I suggest this to anybody, do whatever it takes to make it sound right. Make it sound good, whatever that means. If that means you have to re-record it yourself, if that means you need to trigger all the drums, if that means the bass track is terrible, get a bass player in and redo it. Whatever you need to sell that. You don't need to, there's nothing precious about music. Nothing. And especially if you're trying to sell yourself as like an engineer or something. Yeah. And same with this ad stuff. Like if I held myself to a standard, I would like I have to do this all analog or something, like I would never get anything done. It's just the reality of the situation. A company hires an ad agency and they hire a production team to execute the ad. So the ad agency will have creative, they're called creatives. So like copywriter, people who write the actual script or any sort of text or VO that you hear. People who design what the commercial's gonna look like and kind of come up with ideas, make storyboards, all that kind of stuff. And then the production team executes those ideas. And that may or may not include audio. A lot of times audio is its own thing that they'll hire out. Audio's not always included in a production company, but they almost always have like video shooters and graphic designers and photographers and stuff like that. So basically that team of people, and Garmin has all those things enclosed in itself, those people kind of give me either references or ideas like, hey, make something like this song, we want this kind of vibe, make it folky, make it electronic, make it somber, you know, whatever. And they may include actual references to songs or styles, like here's an actual song I want you to kind of go off of. But as far as actually laying that stuff down, I try to find whatever element about that piece that I'm trying to emulate that is the most condensed version of like, okay, what makes this composition feel the way that it feels? Usually it's like the key, or not the key, but the scale that's being used and the tempo. Tempo is huge. So whether it's like a chord progression, I usually try to find a chord progression that feels similar without ripping it off. I try to change the key if I'm really close to ripping it off, but I try to make something different because they will appreciate that at the end if you make something more original. But for me, I'm a guitar player, so I might play guitar and come up with something, even if I transfer it over to keyboard or piano. So I think if you're getting stuck, go to something that you're familiar with. If you're a keyboard player, play keyboard. If you're a guitar player, play guitar. If you're a drummer, find the tempo, make a rhythm you like. But for me, it really depends on what I'm trying to get at. If it's like an electronic piece, I'm going to start with a synthesizer. I'm going to get the sound and the tempo right. So, does that answer your question? Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. If you're doing something like California and you're doing film stuff, not ad stuff, there's a completely other different set of standards, which I got to talk to a guy who does that stuff, a guy who's done sound for, you know, How to Train a Dragon, Star Wars, blah, blah, blah. I could go on and on, all this stuff. He worked at Skywalker Sound, which is like the biggest place ever. So he had a really interesting thing where like the studio rooms are set up at like a certain decibel level. Like you walk in, okay, this room is tuned to 83 decibels, minus 83 or whatever, 75, 80, 81. Like they leave the volume knob at a certain set level always, and they never go above it or below it. And the way they do sound effects is they will take 15 minutes, and then another person will take the next 15 minutes, and they will do the next 15 minutes, and they put it all together for like a film. So like there's probably 2 sound designers on any given Star Wars movie, and they split up every 15 minutes. And then there's a person above them that like makes sure it doesn't suck. And that's a lot of the professional ad and film industry is like there are so many people you have to please and check off and like, okay, this person needs to watch it. What do you think? I hate it. It's crap. Okay, cool. Or I love it. It's awesome. Push it through to the next person. It's crazy how many, presentations and like, all right, I'm going to show you guys 3 tracks and over this ad, and we'll see which one you guys like, and then they will give feedback, and then you have to adjust. It's a lot of back and forth, and it's super fast paced.
I am a little curious about the whole TV sports.
Yeah.
Was that like live broadcasting?
Yeah. So you're mixing. That was super interesting and super cool, and I had a really good time doing that. I only did it a few times, but basically you show up like hours before the event. I did like a high school wrestling match that they were televising. I wasn't doing like Royals baseball, but I have friends who do that stuff. And so I went and I was shadowing this guy, and then one time I got to kind of work for them for like a day. Like they paid me, which was super, super amazing. So you get there early, you run like enormous snakes into wherever. There's a van outside with like little micro control rooms, and there's video screens and the audio guy, and he's got like very specified equipment that you would never see here because it's specialized for broadcast. So they run snakes. They have like PZM microphones. They like stick onto things. They put those like underneath the mats, underneath the so whenever they do like slams and stuff, like you get the rumble. They set up audience mics. You mic up the lapel mics on the announcer people, and you're mixing all that live. And then you have this music box, which is kind of funny, where like you cue up music and then it plays during certain parts when they're showing stats or whatever. So you're live mixing as you're going. There's an A2 and an A1, so audio 1 and audio 2. One of them is out there making sure everything's good, make sure the microphones work and they've got communicators or walkie-talkies or whatever. And then the other guy's mixing it live. So then, screen comes up, you play the music, you're mixing in the voices, you're taking them out, you're pumping up certain things during. It's all live. Seriously, it's invigorating. It's super cool. Really unique.
You mentioned the time code ruler.
Yes.
How big a part of your workflow is that, using time code?
Now,
Yeah.
immense. Huge. Absolutely huge. When I receive these videos, there may or may not be audio tracks accompanying it. So like there may be VO that's stand-in from the mic. So whenever we do interviews, the audio is recorded into the camera. So it's like a shotgun mic or a lapel, went into like a little mixer. It's just preamps, that's it. And it goes into the camera, recorded to the camera. And that's the audio you use. So then that video gets imported and they do their video thing. I don't know. So then they will edit their video and all that sync sound will be synced to their video and they'll be in good shape. Then they will send you the video edit. And they may or may not have added sound effects or music or whatever. They may have added in some stuff. So then they send you an AAF file where it's like, okay, here's the VO or like the video audio, which would probably have the VO. Here's NAT sound from the camera audio. Here is some sound effects I added, and here's a music track I found. It's like, okay, cool. All that stuff will be exactly how they had it in their session. And if I send them things a different way, or I have it in a different part of my timeline and then try to send it to them, it will not load in right. And you'll be screwed, and you'll be screwing around trying to go frame by frame, trying to make it look right because the video sync isn't right. And all you want is for the client to not watch something and be like, that doesn't look right. That doesn't feel the same. What's different? Why isn't this the same as the thing I just saw? Or why is this worse? So, and also it helps with like actually lining up sound effects, because there's only usually about 24 frames in a single, 24 frames per second, right? So you're cycling through, and you can edit in frames. It's awesome. And so you can like, okay, this is when the guy's kicking the soccer ball. You can go, cool, I'm gonna put the soccer ball sound there.
So you use grid mode maybe?
Absolutely.
In
Yes.
frames? Yeah.
Thank you. That's the best way to describe
Absolutely
it.
grid.
Yeah. So I'm using grid. Yeah, absolute grid to line of sound effects to frame timeline. And also, like the way our workflow is, our time code starts at 1 hour. It's not 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. It's 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. And
Is there a reason for that?
it's just a standard, just an old school thing, like from tape days, because you would have a lead in before that of like a slate. So a slate is a piece of information that tells you what that media is. So like all these ads had slates on them before. It's like, this is a Garmin 30-second ad, this is the name of the ad, this is the format of the video, and this is the audio specs, blah blah blah. That's what a slate is. Doing it an hour ahead on your tape reel when it was back on tape, because they did video to tape too, not just music, and they would have that slate beforehand. And that's why they would set it up at an hour, but everything else would still be 0. So it's like, go to 15 seconds, you don't need to say an hour and 15 seconds or whatever. So that's a workflow thing that you adjust to. To be totally frank, I didn't get all that stuff until I started working at Garmin. When I did the Liquid 9 stuff, it was a lot more, here's the audio file. Cool, thanks. And that works, totally works. You can do that, because it'll be 30 seconds, and as long as there's no issues, you're good. But after working this way, it's so much better, so much easier, foolproof, professional, standard, you've got it, it's awesome. So yeah, I use timecode all the time, and I edit in frames a lot for sound effects and music, all kinds of stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What is the, if there is one, typical parameters of the video file that's part of your session? Like as in like frame rate?
Yeah, so that's another thing, is you can change the frame rate of the session in Pro Tools, and if it doesn't match, if you don't change your session to match the video file, your timeline will be wrong. It'll be like, okay, well this is, I work in so many different frame rates.
So there's no one that it almost always is?
No, never. So like, there's one that I get a lot for most ads is 23.976, I think is what it is. And then there's other ones that are 30, some are 25, some are 50, some are 60. It depends on who on my team is sending it to me and what part of the process they're in. Because we have motion graphic designers who make stuff digitally and then send it to me, which is totally different than the video editor guys who are sending me filmed digital files. So I'm working on different stuff all the time, and that was something I didn't figure out for a while, was you need to change the session, and there's a way to do it in Pro Tools, you can look it up, it's super easy. But in the video file, you'll see the video, and it'll show you the time code to the left, and if it's red, you need to go to session and change it in your session. It's not automatic. So that's huge too, because you'll screw yourself up trying to edit in frames, but it's 25 frames, but your grid is 23.976. For ad stuff, there are specific standards. Like, okay, this has to be at -14 LUFS, loudness units full scale. And that's web level. You know, -24 broadcast for North America, -23 for European. So the way you measure LUFS is, it takes, press play or whatever, and there's a plugin, or a couple different plugins have this, and you'll play the whole ad or the whole piece, whatever it is, and it will measure all of that audio, and as long as at the end it averages to -14 or -24, whatever your target is, and you have a ±2 tolerance to that, or ±1 depending on the format. There's a bunch, it just depends. With web, there are no rules with web. There's just like a loose guide. Like YouTube will knock anything down, but it won't bring anything up. So if you're over -14 or 13.5 LUFS in YouTube, it just knocks it down to what it needs, for better or for worse. But for TV, they will literally send it back and say this is unacceptable, and you never want to have that happen, because then that sets back everybody's time. It's not just as easy as emailing somebody, like, oh, here's the correct file. They're like, you're screwed, sorry, you don't get to air this now, like at the time that you wanted to. So basically what it does is if something's really quiet and then really loud, you can have super loud stuff as long as the rest of it's really quiet. It doesn't care. There's not a standard peak level that you're trying to like hit or not hit. That said, having a limiter that has true peak on it keeps you safe, because you can just set it to like -1.5, and you're being able to visualize or like imagine music in your head is like paramount to writing music, obviously, and you get better at that. If I don't know if you guys write songs or not, you know, if you're musicians and write songs, you should do that. Write stuff, because you will get better at it, and it will help you in every facet of this industry, even live sound, even whatever. You can anticipate music, and analyze it as a function. So, yeah, as somebody who went from like just pure rock music, indie rock, whatever, I like a lot of stuff, but coming from that and playing in bands and then writing music for a function like this, you know, you have to have an emotional aspect because the music makes you feel a certain way, and the way, because the name of the game with audio for video is coupling video with audio, and audio is there to help the video. So if the sound effects you're using and the music doesn't match what's happening on screen, it's not good. That's all that matters. So the style of music, the tempo, blah blah, that's what these people care about. So again, and it goes back to being familiar with every type of genre. If somebody wants you to make a folky sounding thing, but you've never played a mandolin, or you don't know what the function of a mandolin in a folk mix or a folk song is, you know, that you're going to be a step behind. Being able to vocalize music can help you communicate. I'm not amazing at it, but with music training and ear training and stuff, I'm always trying to get better at it. Makes it way easier. When a singer can't hit something, and you're trying to be like, hey, try this melody, if you just sing it to them, even if it's not like good tone, like just hit the pitch or close, they're like, I can do that. I can totally do what you just did. I think keyboards, coming as a guitar player who just has played for 15 years, I'm gonna preach like learn other stuff because everyone plays guitar. I think keyboards are, and you're coming from the other side of that, being a keyboard guy forever. You know, I wish I had more keyboard chops, because you can communicate music so easily that way. You can write songs so easily in so many different styles. But obviously, being able to play guitar for me has been a hugely, it opens up a whole different thing. Like you said, that off-road piece could not have been what it was without guitar. Like being able to play drums a little bit. You can understand what it's like to be a drummer. I love playing drums, but I'm not like a killer drummer or anything. But I understand what it's like to sit behind a drum kit, set up the drums, play to a recording, have mics all around you, how to set up the drums to where the mics aren't in the way or can accommodate a good sound with however they have things set up, or maybe asking the drummer like, hey, would you be willing to raise your hi-hat up like 6 inches? And they can be like, screw you, I'm not doing that. Or they can say, I can try that. And then you have more isolation from your snare drum to your hi-hat, because every drummer's doing this with the right hand for some reason. So, I mean, it's just being able to understand what it's like to be one of those musicians is huge. And if you're not a rock music guy and you have experience with, you know, what it's like to be a sax player or a horn player or a string player or an upright bass player or a jazz drummer or whatever, you know, anything, piano player, or a vocalist. I mean, if you don't understand what it's like to be in that position and what they need in their mix and what they're listening for and how to mic it right, go on, and communicating those ideas. At least if you know music theory and you can vocalize and pitch, you can communicate with any musician. You may not know what the violin is tuned to, you may not know what the notes are, but you can tell them out loud what the pitches are. They'll know, because they're great. So the point with all that is just like every little thing helps and makes things easier and better, and can problem solve and be a good asset to whatever the project is. And if you come through on something like that, like, dude, that guy killed it, that was awesome. That person really, that was helpful. And maybe unexpected, you know, like the assistant was able to do this for some reason, and now we're gonna remember to call him next time we need somebody.